Hello, welcome to the Healthy Enterprise Podcast. If you're back for another listen, thank you for joining me. We're going to be joined by Vance Clement. He's a CEO of Lineus Medical, a company transforming the vascular access space with innovative solutions like SafeBreak, a device designed to reduce IV complications. So Vance has led national sales efforts, launched new technologies, and now steers the direction of a fast-growing medtech startup. He joins us to share insights and lessons he's learned along the way. So please welcome Vance Clement. Hi, Vance. How are you today? Thank you for joining me on this episode. I appreciate you.
Hi, Heath. I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Excellent. Well, why don't you start by doing a bit of an introduction of yourself to the listeners and tell us more about Lineus Medical.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Vance Clement. I'm the CEO of Lineus Medical. We're a startup that is 10 years in business now. My background is an industrial engineering degree from the University of Arkansas. I went on to get an MBA, and I entered into the medical device field working for various orthopedic manufacturers. So I spent a little over 20 years in orthopedics, mainly hip and knee replacements. So a lot of time in the operating room, that sort of thing. And I got to the point in my career where I wanted to be working for myself and calling the shots and owning a piece of what I was doing. So I got into startups, and eventually that's led me to Lineus Medical, and that's in the in the medical space they refer to it as the vascular access space. All that really means is that everything that has to do with IV care in patients. Right. But the fancy name is vascular access. So I've been in vascular access now for 10 years.
Well, Dan, that's not a small industry. It's big.
No, I think the thing that's most interesting about it is, for example, knee replacements, there may be 1 million a year in the United States. Hip replacements, there's about 500,000 or more. But with IVs, there are 235 million IVs annually in the United States alone. So the volume of the procedures and how many little devices are sold for patients with IVs is really incredible.
That's a crazy number. 235 million. Wow. Annually. Wow. Okay. And so what is Lineus providing in this space then?
Yeah. So I met a nurse 10 years ago that had an idea about there's a lot of IV failure. The clinical literature shows us that IVs on average fail 46% of the time before their intended use is complete. So, and I think anybody that's been in the hospital knows that. They feel like they're a bit of a pin cushion and getting stuck all the time. But I met a nurse that was pursuing a solution to this idea. And the idea was that there would be a breakaway in the IV line. So rather than a tug on the patient's line, potentially causing it to come out or causing the IV to fail an hour later or something like that, the idea was when a damaging force comes on the IV line, let's let go of that force. Let's separate on purpose rather than the current technology is more tape, more adhesive, try and hang on to it. I think like a lot of great inventions, our idea is the opposite of what's being done today. And that is to let go of a damaging force when it comes on the IV line. And I'll do a quick demo for those that are able to see on the screen. We'll see it, but I'll do my best to describe it as well. So our device is called SafeBreak, and nurses used to just take the tubing directly from the IV pump and attach it directly to the patient's IV. And we've just created a new breakaway that's in between the IV tubing from the pump and the patient's connector. And it's designed to be able to handle activities of daily living. The patient can talk on the phone, go for a walk, use their cell phone, whatever they need to do, and nothing happens but medicine passes through the device. But when the force on the IV line becomes a little more serious, a little more damaging, the device will separate on purpose to protect the patient's IV. So the IV remains intact in the patient's arm. And when the device separates, valves on both sides of the device close. One side closes to prevent blood loss from the patient. The other side closes and keeps the IV pump from continuing to pump medication all over the floor or in the bed. So we're eliminating all of those non-value added activities of cleaning up a spill, changing the patient's sheets in the bed, going to get additional medication, all of those things that really don't add any value in the process. All the nurse has to do is go get a new SafeBreak that's sterile. They can unscrew the separated components, throw them in the trash, put in a new sterile SafeBreak, and restart the patient's infusion with their existing IV still in their arm.
Wow, amazing. And this probably happens a lot. Who best to come up with this idea than someone who's on the front line replacing these day in and day out?
Yes, it's a nurse-based product invented by a nurse.
Isn't that cool?
When most nurses see it, 99% of them get it immediately and are excited about it. And then usually the first thing they say is, "Why didn't I think of this first?"
They probably wished for it, maybe. Yeah, like I wish someone would come up with something better than this. So you were one of the first people to hear this idea from her then?
Yes. A lot of people say these days that it's difficult to have a single inventor that, creates something and runs with it. Most patents these days have lots of names on the patent. Yeah. I think that is part of it. But yes, it's interesting. This nurse knew about the problem, and there was a businessman in Little Rock, Arkansas, who had twice driven away from the gas pump with the gas pump handle still in the tank of his car.
Yeah.
And I don't know about this happens supposedly 10% of the time. I've not done it personally, but if you drive away, there's a breakaway on the gas pump so that you don't tear up the gas station's gas pump, of course, right. And then they don't want the parking lot to fill up with gasoline as you drive away. Right. So they have a breakaway that does the same thing our device does. And so this nurse was talking about the problem with this businessman who had done this twice. And he said, well, why don't they make a breakaway at like they have at the gas station for IV lines? And then I met them after that point. And with my engineering background, I helped solve the technical problems with actually getting valves and things in place that actually would work in this particular situation.
And what was your background and history that will put you in a position that you were able to kind of go, oh, I can see how we'll do this?
Yeah, well, I started off in manufacturing, but I moved over into marketing and sales, and I'd done a lot of product development. I can't tell you accurately how many numbers of products or line extensions of products I've gotten through the FDA and brought to market. So, sometimes it's just you add a new size to something, you get that through the FDA and add it to your product portfolio, but other times I've done much larger product launches where it's a straight up first time new thing, a whole family of products released. I've even done my last startup before this one was a surgical robotics company called Mako that was really, really successful. It had a exit for $1.6 billion and was sold to Stryker. So that was a piece of $1 million capital equipment sold to hospitals. And then we had the surgical implants, the knee replacements, hip replacements that were put in by the robot. And then you had all the surgical instrumentation that was required as well. So that's a very complex product, obviously a robot, the surgical instruments and the implants all together. So that was my background. I brought the gray hair to the founder group to bring some medical device experience to the Lineus Medical team.
That's great. Well, they called the right guy. It's interesting because you've got an interesting career having started in engineering, plus you went into marketing as well. So you kind of have two different sides of the coin going on in there. Actually, I had a business partner that had an engineering degree who was also working in marketing. So I learned how to speak engineering, actually.
Yeah. Well, he and I may be the rare extroverted engineer, that likes to speak with people and work with people regularly.
Yeah. And a lot of your background was working directly with sales, building sales teams and that. So you had to bring, you already had some of the skill sets for doing that, but you had originally started in products and then went into working with people building sales teams, right?
Right. I had the idea when I went off to school that I needed to, engineers make things, right? And I needed to make something, and I knew I liked people a lot, and that's why I selected industrial engineering. It's the kind of people engineering, assembly lines, efficiency systems, things of that nature. I wasn't designing gears or pumping Jello through a a pipe that's 1 mile long or something like that, right? So,
Right.
so I went into industrial engineering, and I just realized probably by the time I was a junior in college that it really wasn't cut out for me. I had that conversation a lot of people had with, I had the conversation with my father. I think I might like to teach math instead of doing this. My father said, nope, not going to happen, which was a good call on his part. So I sucked it up. I finished my degree. I got an engineering degree, and I worked on the shop floor. We made hip replacements and surgical instruments, and that was a great start. And that never leaves you. I use that knowledge. Obviously, we make our product through a third-party manufacturer, and I get to put on my engineering hat every now and then, and it all comes back to me. But my love is really marketing, and I realized when I got into marketing, doing a product launch is like building something. All the materials you have to have together, sales training, organizing meetings, all those kinds of things. And then as you become an executive, you can obviously build entire sales forces, or in my situation now, build companies. So I'm still building things. It's just not a physical product like it used to be.
Right. And building things with people is obviously a little bit more challenging than just working with inanimate objects. So what were some of the challenges you faced during that time frame, and how did you kind of get
That's
through
a
them?
big question. And, I've never met a manager that didn't say the human part of the management was the most difficult part.
Or the most enjoyable.
Right. I mean, there were 3 founders to our company, and I was 48. The other 2 were 24. I'm the only one remaining with the company at this time. I like to say it's a lot like a rock and roll band. You have a couple of hits or whatever, and just try and keep the band together as long as you can. And we had a good group of guys that all contributed in different ways. But obviously, I was 48. I'm 57 now, but I had there's a big difference between when you're 24, you're still moving around, you're getting married, all those different kinds of things. Or if you're single, there's relationships and stuff that come into play. And so a lot of those factors happen over a 7 to 10 year period that cause people to need to move away, or
for sure
have
lots
different
of
realities,
change.
right? So, those were all different turning points in the company along the way. But we managed to get through them, amicably and keep on going.
Mm-hmm. What did you lean into when you're working with building sales teams? Because I think a lot of time, building sales teams can be a bit challenging, and finding, how did you guide them or direct them in the direction you wanted them to go?
I won't say that this is perfected by any means, but in orthopedics, it's very common to have a lot of distributors. So there's people that carry 5 to 10 different companies in their bag, and they sell their products. But usually the big orthopedic companies, if they're with an independent distributor, they're the main thing sold in that distributor's bag. 80-90% of their sales could come from that big orthopedic company, and the remaining 10% comes from a smattering of other things. And that was my background. And I had watched a couple of my companies do different things. They had tried some territories, the distributors weren't working out, so they went direct. And we ran that way provided, sales reps with cars and 401ks and did all that. And in the end, we found out that they were both about equally as profitable.
Oh.
And so the company's philosophy became, do what's right for that territory. If we can find a good distributor that we want to move forward with, then we do that. If we can't find that, we go direct and try to build our own team and so forth. And so when I came into this space, I assumed that there were vascular access distributors, people that had innovative products in the IV space, and there were. And we engaged with them and hired about 6 of them across the United States. So we ended up with a sales force of roughly 50, 55 salespeople. And of course, they're not all selling for you immediately. They've just met you. You do some sales training with them. You hope that you get 2 or 3 out of each distributor that will embrace the product, move forward, have some success. The other guys in those distributorships see them making money, see their success.
Right.
How did you start asking the question, how did you do that? Where should I go? And you try to grow from there. It doesn't take all 55 people being successful. You only need 5 or 6 reps out of the gate, to get you going. And so when you first start, you get that buy-in from everybody. But if it proves difficult or it's a long selling cycle, people start to fade off or fall away, and so on and so forth. So we have cut back on our distributorships. And now we have 2 direct salespeople that are running east and west of parts of the United States. And if you do the math on that, if you have independent distributors, it doesn't cost you anything until they sell something, and then you pay them the commission. Right. So they're free, and that gives you national coverage, and it's helpful. But you're one of their 10 things in their bag, and you got
other things. Yeah, there's other products. You got
to try and get their
sell.
time, right? Fighting for their time. That's a prerogative. They're going to sell whatever's the easiest, makes them the most money. So you try to be that product. But if you go direct, you've got 100% of your sales reps' time. They're only selling one thing. Right. So you've got all that commitment and all that stuff's in the bag. But now you got the financial side of it. And medical device reps are not inexpensive. They're expensive sales representatives. You can't hire a $60,000 recent college graduate and plop them into a 5 or 6 state territory and expect them to sell things to hospitals. It just doesn't go that well. So you need to hire people with experience, some maturity and experience with hospitals and other medical devices, et cetera. And to get that, you hire somebody in California, it's $200,000 plus. You might be able to find people in the middle of the United States for $150,000, et cetera. But if you add benefits and everything into that, if you want to go direct with 4 sales reps across the entire United States for 2 years, that's going to cost you a couple of $1 million. Yeah. Right. So there's a big price difference, $2 million versus nothing and 55 people and fighting for time. Yeah. So we chose the distributor route, and it hasn't worked out for us. Ultimately, we have some that have done okay, but others that didn't, and we're going direct. And I would say the lessons learned, and maybe that's the most important thing for the audience, is that our sales cycle is long. Our product is roughly $5 per use. That same sales rep, it can take us 9 months to a year to get an account, because we're going to get, hopefully, every IV in the entire hospital. We're going to train every nurse in the entire hospital on our product. That's very different than something in the operating room or an intensive care unit. Yeah. And some of our distributor reps, they sell incubators for infants, and those sell for $40,000, $50,000. So they can work for a year and maybe sell 2 or 3 of those to a hospital and get the commission on that immediately. Right. Whereas they can work on our product for a year, and now it's being implemented at the hospital at $5 every time it's used. Right. And so the payback's going to be over a much longer time period, and so on and so forth. So that's one of the things that we found out just didn't really make the distributor model the right one for us. Whereas a direct rep, one product, they're committed to it, work at it, and it's just a matter of how many irons do you have in the fire, so that you are always producing something.
What creates the drag on that sales process? Is it just because that they've got so much in stock, and then they're not going to implement, they're not going to get rid of that, they're going to use that, and how you got to get in the stock line? Like what creates the delay?
Great question, Heath. So we are the very first breakaway device for any kind of medical line. We are a new class of medical devices called, the FDA calls it a force activated separation device. That's a fancy word for breakaway device. But they realized when we submitted our device that, hey, every medical line that is in a patient, whether it's a drain, a urinary catheter, whatever it is, they all get pulled out or can have problems, get tugged on. And so maybe people are going to create breakaways for all of these. I hope that we get to create more breakaways for other medical lines. So they created this new class of product. So we're not replacing anything at the hospital. We're brand new. So that has its own issues, right? To bring a completely new technology to the space. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. We get to educate, but then there's nobody else out there that's also working at it. We're not Uber and there's not a Lyft, out there that's helping us get the message out. So small startup company, 5 or 6 people, brand new technology, 6,000 hospitals, and over 2 million nurses across the United States. How do you get that message out? So that's a part of the challenge. But then I would say, beyond that, I would say the biggest challenge is that this is something that goes across the entire hospital. We got cleared in the middle of the pandemic in 2021. And our first couple of years were really, really rough because if you'll remember back, nurses, they're still overworked, they're still stressed, but it was the worst it could possibly be at that time. People were retiring, people were quitting, suicide rates for nurses were way, way up and everything. So, hey, we've got a new product that's nurse-based for your hospital that
we want you to learn something new.
Train. Who wants to do that right now? Right. So timing was not good. So we just had to kind of persevere for that time. Yeah. And also hospitals were not profitable at that time. Over 50% of hospitals were not profitable. So kind of just had to wade our way through that till things got more normal and so forth. But I will say the biggest thing I've experienced from doing orthopedics where you're talking to a surgeon and the surgeon is choosing an implant for their patients and, a high volume joint replacement surgeon will do 100 knees and 300 hips or vice versa. And so these are very, very profitable cases for a hospital. And they say that every dollar spent on orthopedics in the hospital generates, I can't remember if it's $10 or $15 elsewhere in the hospital.
Right.
So hospitals love orthopedic surgeons in all of their cases. So if I come to a doctor and convince him that my product's better than what he's using today, or he's convinced by that, he's got a lot of power in that hospital. Mm-hmm. And that surgeon can say, I would like to switch from this to that. Here's the pricing. Can you negotiate with the company? And people will kind of hammer through that. And if the hospital doesn't want to do that, the doctor has the ability to say, I'm going to take my business from hospital A to hospital B here in town. And the other hospital's happy to take those 400 joint replacement cases each year, et cetera. So that's why hospitals buy robots for surgeons and things of that nature, is because of that power and the customers coming in and the revenue that's generated by it. So let's talk about nurses.
Yeah.
Overworked, overwhelmed. There's a shortage. And the frank thing is that they don't have a lot of power within the hospital. So I can show this to a floor nurse. They instantly see how it separates. It saves them 20 minutes on an IV restart. They see how it saves them from sticking the patient, how hospital doesn't have to buy additional medication and supplies. It's really a win-win-win across the board. But for them to drive that through the hospital, it's just a totally different situation. So we get into a lot more committees, infection control committees, value analysis committees. And every single time so far, as we get more adoptions and so forth, we have to do a product evaluation. And luckily, an IV is usually in a patient, the longest is 7 days. So it's not like our product evaluations take 6 months. We can if they'll give us 30 beds in the hospital, we can go through 100 of our devices in just 4 weeks.
Right.
So
many. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But like I said, the volumes are crazy high on this. So if we get 30 beds, we can go through 100 SafeBreaks. They'll see 10 of them separate. Usually there's some pretty dramatic cases. Somebody had a chemotherapy line and they get up to go to the bathroom and they trip and the SafeBreak separates and saves their line. That nurse is a believer for forever. I need this product, so on and so forth. And that's usually enough for us to move on. They expand, they either expand the valuation or go through the whole hospital after that. But it's a long haul.
No kidding. You didn't actually, I don't think you would have thought that they would have to go through so many more sort of evaluative processes to make sure that, oh, it checks all the boxes. And of course,
Right.
I mean, even though you've done it all, they have to
That's
do it
right.
too. Yeah.
That's right. And I'll tell you, this is something I learned in this whole process too. So animals get IVs too. Obviously, you take
Oh,
your
yes.
dog or a horse to the veterinarian and they need a knee scoped or hip replacement or a surgery, whatever it may be. And they're going to be in their kennel or a horse is going to be in a stall, and they're less likely to follow directions than a human patient, obviously,
100%,
about their
yeah.
IV. So,
Yeah.
so SafeBreak should work for them too. So we did a randomized controlled trial on humans, and SafeBreak reduced IV complications by 44%, a massive number.
Well, that's a big number. Yeah.
Big number. I always tell a nurse, if I could solve 44% of your problems, would you talk to me for a minute? And they're like, of course. And that's what our device does. Well, we did a dog study with Colorado State, and guess what? The device works even better in dogs. There's a 65% reduction.
Oh, wow.
In complications. So,
wow.
So we published both of these in peer-reviewed journals. One for veterinarians, we do the dog study, and we published one for the humans in a human journal. The people in the human journal read it and say, that's interesting. I'm going to talk to my hospital about it. Well, a year later, maybe they're adopting it. It's getting used everywhere.
Right.
A veterinarian reads his journal. He calls our 1-800 number and he orders a box, and they start
next
using
weekend.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, right. Interesting. So it kind of opens a whole other market for you. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of markets. There's the veterinary market. There's the emergency services, ambulance market.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's getting an IV that gets in the back of an ambulance.
Yeah.
And then you can imagine they go from possibly the ground to a gurney to the gurney gets put in the back of the ambulance, gets out of the ambulance into the ER, off the gurney onto a bed. There's a lot of opportunities for pulls on the line that are not positive for that patient's IV. A lot of pullouts, a lot of dislodgements during that. Yeah. So that's a whole market. And then there's dialysis centers and nursing homes and home health care. It can be used in any of those places and on any of those lines.
Yeah, home health care would be perfect. Yeah. Senior centers and everything else as well. Nursing homes. Yeah.
We're a startup and our price is a little bit high coming out of the gates. We've been lowering the price as time goes by. I always say, if it costs $2, everybody would put it on every single IV line. Everybody deserves one. Yeah. Right now we're at that $5 mark, and we started at $6.90, but we've been lowering the price over time with volume as we're able to do that. So trying to grab those early innovators, early adopters that really believe and see the value. It makes financial sense even at $5.90.
Yeah.
But obviously, as we reduce the price, more people can get it, and it'll be used more broadly.
Mm-hmm. And is it what does geographic limit you? Like, I mean, obviously, all of the U.S., but beyond the U.S., can you go pretty much anywhere with this?
Yeah. So another interesting thing about IVs, they're all attached. The connections, the screw-in connections on each end, are called a Lure connector, and that's a standard throughout the entire world.
Oh, really?
So we sell one product number, one SKU across the entire world. I always say from Australia to Zambia, the exact same device works across the entire world. And the only geographic limitations are regulatory clearances, which are expensive from country to country. We're approved in Korea, Canada, Jamaica, and Panama currently.
Wow. That's great. So there's a lot of opportunity, really.
Yeah, the global number, I said 235 million for the U.S. It's 2 billion IVs annually globally.
Oh, wow. That's outstanding. That's unbelievable. 2 billion.
Yes. Wow. A big market.
That is huge. So when did you guys go to market? Actually, when did you actually pass?
We were first cleared in May of 2021.
Oh, okay. That's good. All right. And what's next? Like what's your next phase of business development now?
Yeah, well, we're moving to this direct sales model. Like I said, still trying to figure out the sales channel. That's been by far the biggest issue When you're starting a medical device company, the very first thing is, do you have something that works? A working prototype that actually works. You get past that hurdle, and then it's FDA clearance.
Yeah.
And then once you have FDA clearance, I think it's so different than any other business. You've never put it on a patient, probably. It's never been tried. So you spent all this money. We spent 6 years and $6 million to get to that point. And now you get to start placing it on people and see how it actually goes. Does it really work well? All this time and money investment. And of course, drugs are at a whole level above medical devices.
Yeah.
So we were the average for time and money spent to get us to market. And then everything after that, after COVID, has been trying to execute on the sales side in different ways. I think your question was, what's next? I think in our space, we are the thought leaders. We're the only company that's done any clinical research on patients with this type of device. There are 2 competitors now, one out of Sweden and one out of here, out of the United States. Mm-hmm. So we do have a couple of competitors. So that's good. That's good. I hope that they help us expand the market, all of us together. We can all win. It's such a big market.
It's huge.
Like we just discussed. But we brought to market our in entrepreneur parlance, they call it the minimum viable product. Mm-hmm. So you bring that to market. You find out, it'd be better if it was like this, or if it was pink, or whatever that might be. So we have submitted patent applications that are looking good for our 2nd generation device, and this is all public information since the patent is being reviewed. It's been disclosed. So I think the interesting thing is the future of the devices. There's connectivity always is a possibility. Right now, when our device separates and the valve shuts off the flow of fluid from the pump is still trying to pump fluid, and when it realizes it's hitting our valve and it can't get past it, it makes an alarm. Yeah. So we get the IV pump beep, beep, beeping. That lets the nurse know to come in the room to check things out. But the FDA, we're only indicated for IVs that are using pumps. We're not indicated for a gravity line, a bag hanging from a pole. It could be used by a nurse for that application. It would be off-label usage of the device, and the device works the exact same way. Right. It still separates at the same amount of force. It still shuts off the flow of fluid. There's just no alarm on an IV bag. So that's why the FDA didn't feel comfortable saying it could be used on a gravity line. So
it seems weird because it would be like, it seems weird that would be the case, because if someone does have a rip out, there's no alarm.
There's no alarm for that either. We tried that argument with the FDA. It did not go well.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah, the FDA is a little bit like the IRS. Your discussions with them are touch and go. Yeah, you can't argue too much because they're going to do your tax return the next year.
That's right.
Yes. So it's interesting. So the future is going to be, when the device separates, that there's a light that blinks and or a sound that's made from the device, and that could help us expand into the nursing home healthcare market even deeper with on-label usage, for what the device actually indicated for at that time. So
maybe it's going to become smart and it'll actually send a message to someone's phone, like a
absolutely. Those are all possibilities. Everybody wants this to cost 2 cents, but they also want it to send a text message to somebody's phone too. So that's all the interesting thing, chasing it. But we have proven out that we can separate the device and have a light blink for 2 hours, and at the end of 2 hours,
that's effective.
Yeah. So that there's some other kind of notice being given to patient or caregiver beyond just the separation occurring.
Right. So this is very niche as far as marketing goes. So is it really what marketing efforts are you able to do? Like, I know you do some thought leadership and some articles, and what other ways do you kind of try and reach reach people? Are you using traditional marketing or digital marketing in this process?
Well, with medical devices, I think there's a 3-step. It doesn't matter what it is, whether you got a surgical robot or something like our device that has no electricity, no software. I think that you got to have some kind of bench testing or straightforward advantage that just people seeing it, like our device separating, people can see that and they get it.
Yeah.
And there's a certain number of people that like, I gotta try that after they see it. Just some kind of bench testing gets you there, and then there's some kind of short term. The next phase is getting some kind of short term data, something in 6 or 9 months, that gets you there. And then there's long term data that it really works. It really saves you money in let's say like a randomized controlled trial. Our device actually was required by the Food and Drug Administration to have a randomized controlled trial before it was approved. So when we went to market, we actually had data, level 1 scientific data, that showed our device, reduced IV complications by 44%. That's pretty tremendous. So It was more about getting the news out. I will tell you that we started with a digital campaign, probably spent $50,000. Zero, nothing for it, nothing to show for that $50,000. Wish I could have that back.
Yeah.
Right. We also got the booth and the exhibit display and everything, and we started attending intensive care unit nursing meetings and medical surgical unit nursing meetings and so on and so forth. And these meetings are national organizations, and there can be 3,000 people, 5,000 people at those meetings. And I tell you, the nurses, like I say, they see our device and they just love it. It's kind of they have the aha moment. You see the light bulb go on above their head. So we collect leads like mad. We can walk out of a 2-day meeting and have 200 leads from all over the United States. So then we go at it and working on it. And we did that for roughly 3 years with limited success. And what we really learned from all of that ongoing experience, trying different things, trying different messages, trying different demonstration methodologies, all different kinds of things, was that we really learned that in the long run, going bottom up through a nurse that works on a unit in a hospital is just not the right way to get you there. They just don't have the power, like we mentioned before, to
they don't have the
move
influence,
anything.
Right.
So we now do things that are more manager focused, chief nursing officer focused. We get a lot fewer leads. It's a much more powerful lead when we get it. So we work hospitals now completely differently than we did a year ago. We're trying to work top down only, and it is paying off dividends. The evaluations are bigger in hospitals. They're more broad, and the results of the evaluation are accepted more broadly by everybody because a leader has made all of this happen rather than a nurse on 6N, on 6 North that saw this at a convention and liked it, brought it in. So that's really been the biggest lesson overall. And it basically puts us back to, we're talking about how doctors are very powerful. We're getting into the powerful nursing base that can make a difference in the accounts.
Yeah, that makes sense actually when you explain it that way. Yeah, that would be the decision maker at that level and that state in the management team, right?
Yeah. Ultimately, the floor nurse sees it, loves it, gets the benefit of it, advocates for it, but it's after it's gone through a lot of consideration on the top down.
Well, it's probably for them to know that, well, there's not going to be any pushback once we implement this. It's like,
that's right.
As soon as we bring this, it's going to be welcome with open arms.
Yeah, and the floor nurse can kill projects as well. Obviously, if there's 30 beds and there's 60 nurses involved, then they can kill that product if they don't like it. So
isn't that interesting? Wow, amazing. I mean, it's when you showed it, for those of us that could watch you demonstrate the breakaway of that device, is it's like, wow, that seems like it would be like, how hard is that to sell? But I mean, when you have when you have a system like the healthcare system that requires so much, proof of operation and so many sort of check boxes that need to be hit along the way. I mean, it really makes things complicated for for new devices and to enter the market, isn't it?
That's right. In this modern day, purchasing at hospitals, I've been doing it for 30 years. So purchasing at hospitals in the past used to be, let's negotiate, get the best price. Dr. So-and-so wants it. Let's get it in and let's get on with life. And let's have a good partnership with this new vendor, that the doctor likes.
Yeah.
And now that's gone from purchasing being somebody that facilitated things, negotiated pricing, moved on, to purchasing is the most powerful department in hospitals today. Right. And many hospitals are not profitable. So that makes purchasing obviously incredibly important. And I think one thing that I've seen happen just recently on some sales calls I was on that really brought this point home was I can talk to nurses that are in leadership positions and say, well, what do you think about doing an evaluation? Well, I would like to do one. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get one, but I would like to do one. And then 2 hours later, I'm in an appointment with a purchasing person at a different hospital. And I said, what do you think about doing an evaluation? And the purchasing guy said to me, I really like this product. We're going to get an evaluation for you. So
wow.
no clinical background, but a purchasing guy felt confident enough to say, yeah, we'll do an evaluation for you. But somebody that maybe has been in a clinical background for 20 years that sees the value of the product can't guarantee you that you're going to get to an evaluation. That's how powerful the purchasing departments are today.
Because potentially you can save them money.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Ultimately,
yes. That's what the idea.
Yes.
But to make her job better or make nurses' jobs better isn't necessarily a priority. But
yeah, and I also thought, hospitals are going to be really concerned about how many needle sticks the patients get.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, a little kid can be going to the hospital with cancer and they're going in for chemotherapy treatment and they know they're going to throw up and, it's going to be rough while they're in there and everything. But the thing that they worry about the most going to the hospital and everything, Needles. It's getting their IV line started and how many times they're going to get stuck.
Yeah.
That's going to deliver the medication that causes the healing and all the difficult time in the hospital. But they're really worried about the needle stick. And when you stick a little kid, you stick their whole family. Mom and dad, sometimes they're having to hold them. Or in the room.
We all feel it. Yeah, 100%.
Gosh, it's terrible. Yeah. So I went into all this thinking, well, the hospital's really going to care about the needle sticks and the time savings for the nurse because in our randomized controlled trial, we recorded the time to replace our device versus starting a new line in a patient that lost their IV line. And it was a dramatic difference. It was 5 minutes to replace a SafeBreak. And it's normal for a nurse to take 25 to 30 minutes to go get all the supplies to replace a new IV line. So we're not talking about saving a nurse 1 or 2 minutes. We're talking about saving them 15, 20, 25 minutes of time. It's quite significant. And I thought all of that will rule the day, win the day.
Yeah.
And that has not been the case.
Wow.
The hospital does not really care how many times the patient gets stuck. It doesn't show up in a patient satisfaction score in the hospital.
Item. No.
Yeah. And they're not firing any nurses because we saved a whole bunch of time. There's no head count saved. They need to hire more nurses, right? So anyway, that was really, that's really been surprising to me.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. So what do you, as far as building the company, you got a lot of leadership background, a lot of history working with people. What kind of leadership skills do you bring that you think have been most valuable for you in your role now?
I think that you don't realize kind of some of your strengths or what you've been doing and why it's been good for you or helpful to your company. I remember I left an orthopedic company after being there 10 years, and I had some of those orthopedic surgeons come to me as I was leaving, and they said to me, I always knew if there was something new coming out. I had lots of them ask me, would you use it if you were me, and so on and so forth. And I always had the test. Well, if it's my mom on the operating room table, what would I do for my mom?
Right.
That's always the kind of the litmus test. But I had a lot of those guys tell me as I departed from one company to do something else, that I could always trust you. And so I think, just the honesty and integrity those are the biggest things that you bring, working from that place first, because those are the two things that if you lose them somewhere along the way,
Mm,
they if they can be obtained back, it takes years. It's
yeah.
not something that it's earned over an extended period of time to earn trust and earn your integrity back. So I guest lecture at the University of Arkansas. It's just up the street here from our offices each semester. And that's the one thing I tell all the students is never, ever give either of those two things away, because they're so hard to get back. And once you lose them, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. And those are the same things that if you have them and you demonstrate that it's almost that you can actually do that with other people so that you can trust other people, because when you're building companies and building teams, you have to be able to trust other people as well, right? So
Right.
if you exude those strengths and those values, then you are also wanting those from other people, because that's an important part of building a company, is being able to trust others to do jobs that you can't do or used to do and can't do anymore, uh, the
Right.
same way, right?
Right. Right. And I think the other thing, just from an entrepreneurial spirit and standpoint, is that um, people say all kinds of things all the time about it, um, like, but I believe the two most important qualities are that is the perseverance and optimism. Now, if you have a bad idea and you persevere, well, that's just stupid, right? You're trying to make a bad idea good, just never works. So perseverance all by itself is not anything good, but with a good product and perseverance, that's great. But then you have to be an optimist almost to be an entrepreneur. You wouldn't start on the journey in the first place if you didn't
Yeah.
see a pathway to success and so on and so forth. But we've had to do we've done 7 fundraising rounds over time, and some of those were done on bad news.
Mm.
So going out and raising money when the FDA has told you you're not going to get approved this way, you're going to have to do a randomized controlled trial, and we didn't have the money to be able to pay for a randomized controlled trial, so you have to go out and raise that money and get that done. That just requires optimism and perseverance,
Yeah.
and putting together a plan that you think can be successful and trying to go execute it. There's no replacement for those two things.
And how do you keep your tools sharpened? Your leadership tools. Do you work with mentors, or how do you kind of keep those values and skills and
Yeah, I've got
sharpened?
a good board of directors that
Mm.
are obviously, I always say every board meeting's a job interview. I walk out of it, I still have my job today. So they're always sharpening you. But the biggest thing I've done is I belong to a CEO forum of
Mm.
usually it's waxing and waning. People are going out of business, people are being bought, so on and so forth. But try to maintain 10 people and have diversity between ethnicities and sex and all of that to get lots of different experiences. But the CEO job is a lonely job, in that you can't talk to everybody about everything all the time. Total transparency to everybody would make a lot of people run out of the building with their hair on fire,
Yeah, no
So,
doubt.
so you're always weighing that, and having people to bounce that off of is great. And it doesn't matter if they're in your space or not; they're in your seat, on a day-to-day
They
working
know it. They know your pain.
situation, right? And I've been lucky enough. I've had 2 other startup medical device CEOs in my forum, and so that's always good. And when you're banging your head against the wall trying to raise money or whatever, and you talk to another medical device startup CEO in your town, yes, I'm banging my head up against the wall too, and it somehow that makes you feel better. You got to go back out and keep banging your head up against the
You
wall,
don't
but
feel so alone, right?
you're just not alone, because that's what makes it lonely, because you're the one
Yeah.
responsible for the fundraising. Nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah, you're carrying the load. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Well, Vance, this has been so great and informative, and I learned a lot. I'm sure listeners did too. It's a great story you have, and great product. I mean, I'm a fan, even though I don't even use it. I may use it one day. Who knows?
Next time you're in the hospital, ask for
Let's
a
hope.
SafeBreak.
I sure hope so.
Right.
Anyway, it's been a pleasure to have you on this episode. And how do if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about the product? Where do they need to go?
Yeah, great. I would, I'll give everybody my email. It's vance@lineusmed.com, and I'll spell Lineus Med for you. It's LINEUS med as in medical.com. And they should follow us on our LinkedIn page. We release a video every week. As I told you earlier, social media hadn't done that much for us, but one thing we opted to do was we moved to comedy to start having some light messages and trying to get more followers and the news out about our product. And so I make a fool of myself regularly each week. And what's interesting is I told my board that I was going to do that. And if I ever embarrass them or whatever, to call me and let me know and tell me to stop. But otherwise, to give me 2 or 3 months of making a fool of myself to see, what it rendered. And our followers doubled.
No kidding.
The rate at which we were attracting followers has doubled. So yeah, we do a video every week, and it's funny. Everything from fake arms that are flying across the room to whatever. But it captures people's attention and interest, and we still get our message.
Yeah.
Across. So that's always the goal. So LinkedIn, there's a Lineus Medical page, and you can email me. I've provided my email address.
And the website?
The website is lineusmed.com.
Excellent. And we'll put those in the show notes below so people can look forward to them as well. And laughter is the best medicine. So it's great that you're using comedy to reach that audience. So I can't wait to go watch those. Awesome. Thank you again, Vance. All the best. We'll talk again soon, I hope.
Okay. Thanks for having me on the show.
Great conversation with Vance Clement today of Lineus Medical. He shared the story behind the SafeBreak. He even did a demo, first demo we've ever had on the podcast. A simple but powerful device is helping prevent IV complications that seems to happen way more often than most people realize. He also was able to open up about what keeps him going as a leader, like staying positive, building trust, and learning from the people around him. So whether you're in healthcare or building your own company or just love hearing about ideas, how ideas become reality, Vance's journey is full of insight and inspiration. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please subscribe and leave a comment if you like, and feel free to share this podcast with others you think might enjoy it as well. So thank you for listening. We'll see you next time, and stay healthy, and we'll talk again.